Evening. Got helper this evening? Little Woody. What's that, Woody? No. You bored? Right, come on, got things to do. Right. Welcome. Last webinar of the weekend, 6 p.m. So I'll get going. Well, let me just move that camera back. Woody's moved it, bless him. So Beyond the Lens Academy even, can't even speak, been a busy day. Doors closing this evening or tonight at midnight. So if anybody's still interested in joining, you have time. It's www.beyondtheLensAcademy.com. Let me just put the website link on. I always do this. www.beyondtheLensAcademy.com. Make sure I spell that right. Don't get that wrong, do we? beyondtheLensAcademy.com. Okay, so there's a link. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see everything about the academy, what's involved, the different levels, which is beginner, amateur, and pro, stroke aspiring pro, and you can join. And so we're open. We only open for three times a year, and this is one of them. So if you're interested in joining, this looks like it's out of focus actually. Slightly bizarre. That's all right. Let me just move it a bit closer because the light's a little bit rubbish now at this time of day. That's better. I think that's focused. Yeah, so we close at midnight. So what is the academy about? I'm Carl Thomas. If you don't know me, you've not seen me before, you're watching one of these webinars for the first time. I run Beyond the Lens Academy, which is set up at the turn of the year. But I also run as a professional photographer, Carl Thomas Photography, which is a dog photography business, hence little Woody wanted to say hello. I've been doing that for about 5 years. And through that sort of journey, I found myself on different workshops, different webinars, different sort of YouTube videos, and all the different content that Woody, he's whinging, wants to get out now. And useful stuff. Some of it really good, some of it not so good, but it was all in different places. So that's the reason I set up the academy. So it's an online training support platform for amateurs, beginners, pros, whatever level you're at, that has content for all of you. But importantly, it's all in one place. So the kind of things that are in it, let's just have a little look. If you go to the website, www.beyondtheLensAcademy, apart from being able to join, which you can at the moment, you'll find as you scroll down the website, if you're on a desktop, you'll come to a thing that looks like this, which is all the different features and content that you get in each of the different levels, whether it's beginner, amateur, or pro, aspiring pro. If you're watching on a mobile, those are separate little panels as you scroll up and down because it's not too wide. So all that stuff's there, but just some of the things that are involved in the academy. We've got a private Facebook group, very, very popular. There's 100 odd people in there. In fact, more than that, I think now. And people share content, share images, ask questions, ask for advice. Very, very popular. We've obviously got, as part of the academy, online learning modules, and each of the categories there are modules and learning about different skills to do with photography, whether you're beginner, amateur, pro, and they're all different in each of the areas. But there's also a thing called the Hub, which has got content that's available for everybody. So, for example, quite a lot of the editing work that we do is in there because that kind of applies to all levels of photography. And there's lots of resources and links to different places where I buy products and, website people and just all the general kind of support stuff. We've got a mobile app. Who hasn't these days, but we've got one. We do lots of weekly group webinars, which is very popular. New gear reviews. I mean, at the moment, there's lots of equipment coming out almost on a weekly basis. So I'll give people my views on that level of equipment. I also help people when it comes to deciding on what kind of a camera or lenses they may or may not want. This is proving very popular. Group image critiques. In fact, I've had a few uploads this afternoon, I've noticed. So this is where we have a theme and we change it every couple of weeks or so. And people can come along, join, upload images, members, usually the before and after image, if that makes sense. So out of the camera and then the edited one with the settings and a little bit of a commentary. I'll put that all together in a presentation, and we go live and give over all the feedback. I mean, I'll give them a critical analysis, obviously. So not just it's a nice photo or it's not a nice photo, but a proper critical analysis, so you can understand how to improve your photography, or accept that it's really good, because sometimes people don't necessarily think their photography is as good as it perhaps is. We've got a few comments in here. Let's have a look who we got. Oh, hello, Jim. How are you? Oh, I'm seeing you on the. We're up in Scotland next week, aren't we? Brilliant. Can't remember, Jim. Are you? I can't remember if you're in the academy or not. Yeah, you might want to think about that, Jim, because it's a great place. But anyway, if you're in it, my apologies. There's so many people at the moment. I've a bit of brain drain because lots of new members coming in. But if you're not, that's fine. But if you aren't and you want to join, get hold of it. No, not yet. Okay, fine. We'll have a little look. There's some really good deals at the moment. But in any event, I will see you in Scotland next week. Looking forward to that. I'm going to be sending out a little note just while Jim's on here. Probably tomorrow, during the course of the day, all about the trip and what we need to do, how we get there, postcode references, what equipment you need to bring, all that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming out fairly soon. So that's good. Right, what else have we got? Let's go back to my banners. So that's the group image critiques. We also do that on a one-to-one basis for amateurs and sort of pros and stuff. If they've got a particular style of photography they're trying to get to, or a particular kind of image they want to look at, we might look at several images on a one-to-one basis and sort of review that in some level of detail. And obviously we do that in the pro level as well. This is quite a popular area. Let me just see what that comment is. No problem, Jim. This is quite popular. This choose your subject one-to-one. So everybody who joins the academy, whether you join as a beginner or a amateur or a pro aspiring pro, whichever level, I do an individual one-to-one with everybody. So I like to personally meet and spend half an hour or so with each new member. There's a profile form that a new member gets to fill out, and obviously I've got all that to hand then. And we just talk about why you're joining the academy, what you're looking to get from the academy, what it is about your photography you're looking to improve, where are you, what's your journey, what are your ideas, and all that kind of stuff. And that's really important for me and the team to make sure that we are delivering content and putting stuff together that's for the members based on what they're looking for, rather than me saying this is the sort of the kind of standard sort of online learning platforms that I've got, A to Z. Photography is not like that, because some people are at different levels, and some people don't want to go to Y, they want to go to B and stuff. Anyway, so that's partly what we're doing. So everybody gets one of those. But for the pro level, aspiring pro, so if you're at a level where you think you might want to start earning money from your photography, albeit part-time or full-time, or setting up a new business, or you've already got a business and you're looking to earn more money and more profit, or understand it better and maximize it and deliver an even better service to your clients, then the one-to-ones are unlimited for that level, which is why it costs a little bit more. But if you consider you could have, one-to-one several times a week with me, 8, 10 a month, or however many you need, to be honest, the value is incredible, I think. So just wanted to point that out, because sometimes people sort of gloss over that. Right, what else have we got? Let me just see. Last thing, and just on the workshop. So the one I was chatting to Jim about is the Scotland week one that's sold out. We're in the beautiful Cairngorms for a week of wildlife, landscape, and all-round photography out and about each day, as well as doing very topical discussions in the evening and so on. So looking forward to that. We also run 2-day workshops down here, so just south of Reading, where it's a combination of sort of classroom and hands-on photography, which people really do enjoy. And the next one of those is in November, next month, last one this year actually. So 12th and 13th of November, I think it is. It's on the Facebook page. There are some spaces on that if you want it. But the point here is that the discounted photography workshop apply to the 2-day ones down here. And so I think as a member you get about 25% off, which is great value. So that's kind of that really. So let me just get rid of that a minute. So that's kind of what the academy is all about. In short, it's quite a lot more to it than that, obviously. So if you go to the website, I won't waste your evening going on over all the features, but it's all self-explanatory. It's all there. If you go to each of the member pages on those tabs I showed you just now, if you're thinking, say, as an amateur, you have a little look about the things that are included in it. Click on that, it takes you to a page more about amateur stuff. And there's a little 1-minute video on each of the sections about me, from me, just saying some very specific bullet points as to why you might want to join the academy. So let's have a look at some pictures, because that's kind of another reason I like to do these webinars. Let's get the pictures up and ask questions. So if anybody's got, let's just check the comments. If anybody's got any questions they want to ask about the academy or about photography, settings, types of cameras, something they're struggling with, come have a word now, because I'm here, and I'm here probably for half an hour, however long it takes. 10 minutes in already. Don't have to go quick, don't it? So in terms of the kind of stuff, some of the pictures, let me just talk to you about. So if, for example, you join, I'll start at the let's start in the middle. Let's make it different. So if you're an amateur, which is a very popular part of our community, typically we're talking about wildlife photography, and so we'll spend quite a bit of time with images like this, how you get the depth of field that you need, what kind of shutter speed do you need, what kind of aperture do you need, and all the kind of settings to get those kind of shots and get them really well. And a big part of it is a thing called Fieldcraft. So one of the things that we'll be talking about in the Wildlife Scotland workshop, but we do also in the academy, is a thing called Fieldcraft. Because if I show you this picture, which was up in the Cairngorms on the 2-day one that we do in February, so that's another one we're going to be doing. Half of the challenge of this kind of photograph is getting to a place where you can take this photograph. And so there's a lot involved. When you get to this, then you've got white bird, white snow, and dark background. So we'll We talk about all the different skills you're required to do that. But also, you know, some animals are protected. Kingfishers, for example, Schedule 1 birds, you need a license. You know, it's a criminal offence to go anywhere near one of them, especially when they're nesting without the appropriate license and training and stuff. So we've got here dolphins, so we do quite a bit of that, and that's always quite good fun up in Scotland. And obviously birds and birds in flight are very, very popular with amateurs. And also landscapes. You know, a lot of people just love doing landscapes. So here's a seascape, I suppose, not really a landscape, is it? Of a shot of over an isla where we're looking at the sea nice and sort of soft, this rock's nice and sharp in the sunset. So we were talking about ND filters, the sort of sunglass thing that you stick on the front of your glass to give you enough darkness to have a longer exposure, and a graduated filter so that you can get the sunset in. So those are the, I'm just trying to find the other pictures of, yeah, so it's kind of this sort of stuff. So how do you turn the image on the left to the image on the right? Well, you have a long exposure. But of course, in bright daylight, which is, well, not necessarily bright daylight, but in daylight, as this is this particular imaging, the only way you can do that is to have a level of darkness that creates on the lens. So it's a filter. Some of them just screw in the end of the lens. This is a coffee cup, but some of them screw in like your filter do, and some of them have a bracket that you screw in, which are the ones I use. I use Lee filters, which I love, and then they slide on like little pieces of glass. So they're either completely one tone, or they've got like a graduated thing on them. So you know, we kind of do that kind of stuff for the amateurs, and lots more. You know, there's one-to-one activity where we'll come and work with individually. We talk about camera settings, lenses, you know, the kind of tips and tricks to get the kind of exposures you want. Where should we go next? Let's go to beginners. So if you're a beginner, one of the most common things that I get asked is this. So people join the academy either because they've got a sort of an entry-level camera and they want to get off auto, or actually they might have an iPhone and they want to learn to use that more. I say iPhone, smartphone, but the technology in behind these now can create some wonderful photos. So you don't have to have a flash camera to join the academy. You don't actually have to have a camera. Some people join the academy and learn with me about what they need to do in terms of getting the right camera. Let's have a little look. Let's look. I might have another question or comment. Let's have a look. Oh, Tracy. Hello, Tracy. Hi, Carl. Unfortunately, I can't join the academy this time. No, that's fine. Don't worry, Shane, but not a problem. But just wondered if you would like. Are you still? Yes. So it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. I've done a lot. I've been on a couple of times today, just making sure everybody knows that we're open and don't miss out to get the word out. Because despite what you do on Facebook, it only goes to so many people. We've got an email list as well, which I'll just come on to, and even that only, you know, not everybody seems to get the email sometimes. So the answer is yes. I try and come on once a week actually, if I can, and just do a session like this where I come on, talk a little bit about the academy, but spend most of the time answering people's questions, sharing images, talking about tips and techniques. And so the two ways you can make sure you get to know about those is if you go to the website, www.beyondthelensacademy.com, you can go in, I've made it easy, there's a box you can click which takes you directly to the Beyond the Lens Academy Facebook page. And if you like the page, not the images, the page, well, of course you can like the images if you want, but the actual page itself, and follow it, that will mean that you'll get announcements when I put things on there and postings. And the other thing you can do via the website is join the mailing list. And that's quite a growing list, actually. We've got a few people subscribe over the last few weeks. And the point of that is I don't send emails out every 5 minutes. I've done a few this last week, I suspect. And that's because we're opening the doors and stuff. But typically that will be me who will tell you about webinars, or more importantly, when we're going to open the doors next, because we're hoping to get one in before Christmas, another one this year, but we're not sure yet. So fingers crossed. But in any event, we are open this evening if people still want to join. We're up until midnight. And, you know, workshops, information about the workshops and all the various different things that we're doing and new things that we're launching. So it's worth doing. So if you're not ready to join the academy, then that's absolutely fine. I'll try and do these webinars once every week or so. And if you get yourself on the mailing list, you'll get to find out when they are. So what else have we got? Where were we going? Oh, yeah, so we're going to beginners. So, yeah, people wanting to get off auto. So in order to get off auto, it's a bit like a car. You need to know what your brake, accelerator and clutch does. And so one of the simplest ways of sort of working with that for beginners is this scenario. It's quite well known. It's not new. The exposure triangle, and that effectively is ISO in the top there, which is the sensitivity of your camera sensor, aperture, which is on the bottom left, which is the amount of light that the lens lets in via the hole that gets bigger or smaller, and then shutter speed, which is the amount of time the shutter opens and closes for. Let me just check this comment. No problem, Tracy. Yeah, so that's kind of what this is. Now, what we do with the members of the academy at all levels, actually, it's quite a common thing. I mean, I always sort of say to people, even if it's amateurs or pros, if I'm working with them and somebody said to me, right, you can show me one slide and that would be it. It would be this. Because frankly, it's the fundamentals of photography. You need to understand, if you're going to take a picture in manual or in shutter or aperture priority, if you'll choose a shutter speed because of a fast shot you want to take of a dog running or bird in flight or motorcycle or whatever it might be, then you've decided that on that corner I need to be at 1,000 per second. Well, the camera needs a certain amount of light to get the picture exposed correctly or how you want it. So the other two have an effect on that. So you can increase the sensitivity of the ISO, which is the top one, but of course that has an impact on noise. Or you can increase or decrease the aperture, which is making the hole bigger or smaller. For those who don't know what that looks like, that's what it kind of looks like inside the lens. And so you need to sort of understand, in order to get the exposure correct in the middle. The way I sort of say to people sometimes is, imagine in the middle of this triangle. Let me put it back up again. I'll find it. Here it is. Imagine the middle of it is a number 12, say. And each one of those is currently set at 4. Well, if you suddenly say, oh, I need to increase my aperture to 6, well, the other two have got to be a number that adds up to 12. So you've got to have a 3 and a 3, or a 2 and a 4, or a 1 and a 5. And it's really important. We spend quite a lot of time on it in different ways, different styles of learning, because the important thing about it is until you really get that, and it's a light bulb moment, it doesn't take forever, but once you kind of get it, you can then start exploring photography, because you then are equipped to go, right, okay, I'm going to be doing a portrait shot here. So I want little doggy look. I want the background nice and soft, and I want the dog sharp, and you know, like this. Or what else have I got? Here's a wedding shot. So you know, a nice shallow depth of field. I've got some more humans on here somewhere, not many, in fairness. So background all nice and blurry, model nice and sharp. So then you think, okay, well, I need a small aperture for that. So that means that's going to let in quite a lot of light, so I can get away with a slower shutter speed. But actually, if there's a lot of light, I'll probably need a faster shutter speed. So what do I do with ISO? And all those things, when you first start, are quite mechanical thoughts. You know, it's quite rigid. Okay, this I've got to do this shutter speed, this with aperture, and so on. But what we aim to do in the academy is get people to a point where that becomes fluent, like it is when you drive your car these days. Unless you just passed your test. If you're like me, I get in my car, and you know, I'm driving down the road. I don't remember putting my seatbelt on and starting on steering and driving. It just happens, automatic, subconscious. And that's what photography is about. So at whatever level you're at, when we get you to that point, you can spend more time looking this way in the viewfinder and thinking about things like composition and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff we focus on with beginners. And then if you're a pro or aspiring pro, we've had a lot of people in the academy who are at this level, either intentionally or as a result of the constant webinars that I'm doing and sharing knowledge about what's involved with setting up a business. There's a number of members who've gone, do you know what, I might try and do this. What do I need to do for the basics, just to be able to start maybe earning some income at weekends, perhaps, that supports my hobby. Because we all know, you go to the photography shop, it's expensive if you want it to be. Lots of nice goodies. But at the other end, you've got people who've intentionally said, right, I'm joining the academy because, you know, with all the changes that have gone on in the world at the moment, I'm going to try and make some money out of my photography. And so they come along to me, they join the academy, and we get them set up. And we've got a number of members who've joined the academy with that specific objective in mind, who have subsequently got everything sorted, and there's a lot to it. You know, there's lead management. Where do you get your customers from? What do you charge? How do I deal with Facebook? What's the best social media strategy? Very complex area, which I've mastered. You know, I've got nearly 30,000 people follow me on Instagram and Facebook now. So I've got a very successful business, but it's not been easy, and it's understanding all those sort of things. And you know, what do I price? What are the margins? All those kind of things. They've gone live, and they've got several £1,000s worth of orders already. So it's more than covered the cost of being part of the academy. Let's see, is this a question? I love this question, Jim. Brilliant. Yes, you can. It was asked earlier, actually, and in fact, I've done 2 today, where members who have been member for a little while have at amateur level have gone up to the pro level, and actually got one person who's doing so well has gone from the beginner level right the way up to a pro aspiring pro. So yes, you can do that. And we're very flexible in the academy. So whether you pay annually or monthly, if you pay monthly, we just cancel the monthly subscription at the amateur level and resubscribe you into the pro level. If you pay annually, which is quite a good deal at the moment, the discounts in the academy are between 12 and 41%, not 12, what am I talking about? 25 and 41%. So very significant discounts. But if you pay annually, all we do, say you've been been in it for 6 months, we'll give you the balance of the unused annual payment as a credit on your new membership. So it's quite a good way of doing it, and it's quite simple for us as well. So we were very keen to make sure we do that. What else? Yeah, so for pros, there's a lot, and it's not all about, you know, being a pro photographer is, there's two parts to it. There's two parts to photography when you're a pro or you want to make money. One is your business, your photography, your style, what you're trying to do, and the other is the money side of things, and they kind of go hand in hand. But there's also quite a lot of skill and required. So when it comes to things like client galleries, you know, how do you maximize those so that your clients, your customers, because at the end of the day, it's all about your customers. The way I look at it, and you have a look at my Facebook page. You know, I've got a lot of very, very happy customers who've had lots of doggy photos over the years, and customers key. So you have to understand what they want, what they're looking for. You know, be mindful of their budgets. So, you know, I've got clients that spend a few £100s, which is absolutely fine, and I've got clients that spend literally thousands, £5,000, £6,000, £7,000. So it's a real varied mix, but it's about what the client wants and what they can afford to spend, and it's really important to look at that. But also, it's, you know, we help people with, you know, whatever genre they're in. So, you know, how do you, if you want to start, you know, one of the things that I get asked about all the time, just another question, have a little look. What's that, Jim? Yeah, no problem, Jim. You know, I'd like to start, I'd say, I mean, dog photography is obviously very popular, so I want to set a dog photography business up, but there's loads of people around the corner from me, and dog photography is very popular now, that are doing it for 50 quid, including all the images. That's absolutely fine. I've got people around here that do that, but and I'm not suggesting I'm a Michelin star person, but does the Michelin star restaurant worry about the kebab van that's set up around the corner? No. So one of the things that we do is help people understand how to differentiate yourself so that the service that you're offering stands out, and is something your customers are going to want. And it's quite a complex little area. But what you'll get if you join the academy as a pro, aspiring pro, is unrivaled access to me with no holds barred. I don't keep any secrets. You know, my price guide and my profit margins and all that kind of stuff, and how I do it in detail, soup to nuts, is all available for you to find out about. Now, I don't know what you do in terms of putting a price on that, but I know, having set up a business 5 years ago, having had that sort of access straight away, I would have probably been more successful quicker. If that makes sense. All right, here we go. Andrew Williams. Right, okay, that's a good question, Andrew. To be honest, I'm not sure. I think it's about 100, something like that. It's not massive. It might be slightly less than that, actually. Somebody asked me that too, I should know. It's sort of, if it's 100, it's probably, if it's less than that, it's probably 60 or 70 or 80 or something like that. But it's a fair few people. Now, what is really important, and I'm glad you asked this question, is another important part of the academy is that I wanted to sort of, I suppose, have for members, is because I found this myself when I first set up. Photography is quite a lonely thing. You know, if you're a hobbyist, an amateur, even as a business, you know, like, you interact with clients, but you're not getting sort of feedback. You're not necessarily getting support. So a big part of the academy for me is having a place in the community where everybody feels supported and they feed off each other, and it's kind of like mentorship. And you have a look at some of the reviews. People are falling back in love with photography because they're getting their images shared in the group. So in the private Facebook group, everybody's in there. There's 100. That's a good point. There's 100 and something in there. So it probably is 100 members. So looking at that earlier. And sort of getting feedback. So interacting with the members is two ways we do that. We do that on in the private Facebook group, but also, I mentioned earlier on, the online learning modules. What we do with those is I record them live. So there's a whole lot of content already in there. So whatever, if you're choosing to join, whatever you'll find, whatever level of membership you're interested in, all of that content's already there. But that's not fixed. It's not like the lid's on it and there's 50,000 videos and you watch them. It's not that many, but there's a lot. Because I add to them every week. So, and I'm doing, you know, typically between 1 and 3 a week. And I schedule them. I put you get a little announcement in the academy, and you can come along. And as people are commenting, as we are today, a bit similar to this. So I'll be talking about, I don't know, action photography or birds in flight, or, you know, lead management or whatever. So sometimes it'll be a webinar that is available for everybody because it's general. But sometimes if it's all about, you know, Facebook advertising, then, you know, amateurs and beginners probably not interested in that. But people come along and then they'll ask questions and make comments about that. And I'll answer them just as I'm answering your question now, and I'll put the little thing up on the bottom of the screen here. That then is obviously a recording that's uploaded into the membership, and then people can continue to comment. So yeah, that's, you know, I really encourage interaction with members. The image critique reviews that we do, members can all individually upload an image or two based on the theme. So the current one is something in your garden, something from your garden, I think. So there's quite a few people uploaded images already. So before and after and some commentary. I'll put all those together. And then everybody comes online, or those that are available comes online in the chat box, and I go through a presentation and share it all. So everybody's sort of talking to each other. And so they get to know each other. One of the things I have found as well is that in addition to the private Facebook group, which everybody's in or has the ability, not everybody's joined it, but 99.9% people have, they'll get to know each other. People have been on the workshops, the face-to-face workshops, often sort of exchange email addresses and Facebook pages and start communicating afterwards. So everybody feels like they get to know each other. So I know it's a long answer, but it's a really good question. I'm so pleased you asked that, because it's a big, important part for me for the Academy. It's not just about learning stuff, not just about understanding how to make money from photography or how to use the best settings in your camera. It's at a very simple level, it's a place to get inspired. It's a place to give you an excuse to go and use your camera, or a reason to go and use your camera, or a reason to try something different. So yeah, big part of the Academy. So great question, Andrew. Thank you very much for that one. Let's go and have a look, see what else we got here. So I sort of touched on each of the areas there in terms of the kind of thing we do, but let me just let's do what are we doing for time? Oh, so that's not too bad. Right. Let's give you some advice. So let's think. Right. So action shots. Here's one. Very popular shot I took some years ago, and people sort of go, "Wow, it's brilliant! It's great, isn't it?" Now, and I get a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I'd love to be able to take a photo like that, but my camera can't do that, or I don't necessarily know how to do it." So one thing I can tell you is this particular the technique I used on that shot doesn't need a flash lens or a flash camera. So and the way I'll describe that is my camera is a Canon 1DX Mark II with a 70 to 200 lens on it. The combination of that is probably 6 or 7 grand's worth, and it's because it's got faster AF systems in it, very, very quick algorithms. It locks on very quickly. It stays on the subject quickly. The lens itself has got very, very fast motors in it, so it's all very fast. All those things are brilliant, which is why it costs a lot of money. But here's the rub. On this particular shot here, not relevant, because I'm using a thing called pre-focus. And I'll explain what that is in a minute if you don't know. But essentially, what that means is if you've got an entry-level DSLR or an old one from eBay, as long as you know how to press the button, then at the right time, you can take a photo like this. And because what I'm doing here, instead of trying to track the dog, which is where you need sort of really reasonably good equipment or a certain level of skill, I pre-focused on the header in front of the dog. So if you imagine that's the header there, and I pre-focused on it here, then the doggy, imagine this Tableau thing is a doggy. Once you pre-focus on a point, whichever it is, everything in a vertical horizontal line, like a waterfall, is the focus point. So instead of tracking something that's moving, I focused on this point here. So everything above this, below it, left and right will be in focus. So as Fido comes running along at 400 miles an hour and jumps up, as long as I take the pictures, a couple, 3 pictures at that point, whatever's effectively going through that waterfall, if you like, if you imagine just walking through it, will be in focus. And so that's how you get a shot like that. And so that's quite a useful technique for a number of reasons. One, it helps people get tack sharp images like this, without necessarily having to have very expensive gear. It also helps when it comes to things like black dogs or poor light. So another thing that is a challenge in photography is working with black dogs, or any kind of monotone color dog, so like a golden lab or something like that. The camera will find it difficult to focus on it. So if you point your camera at sort of a magnolia wall, or like I've got up here, this sort of funny kind of light on it, so reflecting on it. There's no, I know there's a shadow there and a line there, but if you were pointing at this sort of area here, which is all sort of fairly bland, you just do it with your camera on continuous focus. You'll find the lens going. It finds it difficult to focus on it. Same happens with black dogs. So again, pre-focus this little pug. In what you could probably see from that image is pretty average light, it's very flat light, and a black dog. That's a nightmare scenario when it comes to trying to focus, even with the gear that I've got. So whilst you can't see it in this frame, in this particular image, underneath where this dog is flying is a little sort of branch I stretched across a little pathway. And so I did exactly the same as I said just now. So there's the log line down, I focused on the log, and as doggy comes running along, jumps over it, snap. So it's a good technique of doing it. You don't need to have particularly flash gear. And we've done it on a number of the workshops, and I've seen clients go away from the workshop so excited because they've now managed to get a really tack sharp shot of a black dog without having really expensive gear. Because a big part of what I like to try and do in the Academy is not persuade people, but help people save money. Because you do not need expensive equipment to have a great time with photography. and it's saying, I love it. It's not mine, so I've stolen it. But it's people say, what's the best camera? The best camera is the one you got with you. And for me, frankly, sometimes it's my iPhone. And I've put photos on. I think I've probably got one on here actually. I've often put photos on Facebook. Here's one. On my dog photography page, or even on the Beyond the Lens Academy page, and people say, "Oh, that's lovely," or "What were the settings? What a great photo!" It's like, that's an iPhone photo. Now you still need to know a little bit about it, but knowing a little bit about photography in terms of how to sort of amend the things you can in your camera is probably enough. So, I get people quite regularly come to me in the academy and say, "Look, Carl, I'm all excited about it. I've been in them. I'm loving it. Loving these webinars. I'm loving this private Facebook group. I love it. I love it. I want to get a better camera. I want to get a better lens." And sometimes they're at a level where actually, you know what, they probably would benefit from a better lens. But more often than not, if you go through it and say, "Okay, let's break this down. Let's just stop a minute. What the camera you've got is what?" And they'll tell me. And you'll be like, "Okay, so what is it about that camera that is not, you're not getting? What's it not doing for you for your photography or the lens?" And quite often it's just understanding where they are. And so maybe it's okay, perhaps get a slightly different lens, because often they'll say if you're going to upgrade and you've got a limited budget, maybe a better lens is the next step. But I'm very, very careful to make sure that people don't rush off and buy loads of expensive gear, because it's very frustrating. And I've seen plenty of photographers do it. They go out and rack up a nice big credit card bill on a flash lens and camera, and it doesn't improve their photography. It doesn't make you a better photographer. It's not how you use it. So what we've got here, let's have a look. Yes, Linda, it is exactly that. So what I tend to do is there's two little things to think about. I use single point focus, and I use a thing called back button focus. So what that means is I have the button on the back of my camera set so that unless I press it, the camera won't focus. It's a very useful technique, and I'll explain a little bit more about it in a second. But if you're not using that, and you're using the normal way a camera is set up out of the camera, out of the factory, which is the shutter button does the focus, the metering, and presses the button, takes the picture. Have your single point focus, and if you're in that mode, just move it sort of down. So move it sort of down where your name is here, so that effectively, and I always use continuous focus, but although I'm focusing on the header, which is not moving, it's continuously not moving. If that makes sense. So if you have your spot over there, and you just leave it there, and so when you take pictures, it will focus, but on the header. And what happens then is if you move very slightly, because you will as a photographer, even if you're comfortable, you move very slightly, it will keep it on that header nice and sharp. So yes, that's what I do. Now, this back button focus thing is something that is a bit Marmite, because it's not for everybody. Now let me just grab my camera a sec. It's a technique that I've been doing for some time. I just like the flexibility. So instead of the front button taking half pressing, it does metering and focusing. What you do in the settings, and it depends on what camera you've got, and we help everybody in the academy with this, is you go into the back of the camera and you tell it to deactivate the focus part from the front button, and normally there's a button on the back somewhere that you can choose, or one that's already pre-chosen. So the way I use my camera then is I have to press this button on the back. So in that scenario, I can point my dot down at the header, press the back button, and it will go focus on it, and then I can let go and recompose, so I don't have to move my spot around. But the other, and it's a very, very popular thing in wildlife photography, the other advantage of it, of course, is if instead of having to change from sort of continuous focus to one-shot focus, it gives me the one-shot focus. So if I want to focus on me as a person, which is portrait photography, I can go and just take my finger on the button. So it's very, very useful little trick. The disadvantage, so when I get people, it's a bit Marmite, not everybody likes it, but more often than not, when people who I've helped with it try it and then come back a few days later and go, "Oh, I couldn't get on with that," it's because it's a habit thing. They forget. So when you've been used to pressing the front button for your shutter and you change over to back button focus over a period of time, it's not difficult to sort of forget to press that button. It's a habit for me now. So you've got to force it. It's a bit like putting your foot behind yourself when you've got an automatic car. It's just habit. But it's not for everybody. I mean, I know some wonderful photographers. I work with a guy called if I'm using my single point like that and I don't need to move it because I've got back button, then I'll literally point the camera down here, zap, and then just recompose so I've got it where I want. Or sometimes I move the point down so I can keep my frame like that. It kind of depends. So a bit of a mixture. But as I say, it's not for everybody. So for example, I worked with a chap called Claudio Piccoli some years ago. He's an Italian Nikon ambassador, amazing guy, and he's well known for these sort of shots. So this is one of my shots I took when I was on the workshop with him. So I just point that out. So he was helping me do this. But yeah, and he doesn't use back button focus, so you don't have to use it. I just love the flexibility it gives people. So I've kind of got used to it. Right, what have we got here? No problem, Linda. It's kind of why I do these webinars. or Facebook Lives, I suppose they're called. Right, what else have we got? Let's have a look at more pool pictures. How we do for time? 36 minutes. So keep the questions coming. Anybody wants to ask anything, more than welcome to do that. Right. So another thing, let's just talk about editing. So editing is a big part of what we cover in the academy. So a few people have asked about that. So yes, we cover editing. I'm an Adobe accredited associate. Sounds a bit flat, but I went on a course for a week, basically. It's not that big important, but I know how to edit, basically. And so I share that with everybody. I use Lightroom, but for mainly I've got Photoshop, but some people use Affinity Pro, some people use, use Snapseed, which is a free app. It doesn't matter what you use. What matters is how you use it. And so we help everybody in the academy do that. Let's have a little look. What's that? Yeah, he's an incredible guy, brilliant. And so, you know, I spent a bit of time because I like his dogs as well, the little frisbees, and he's, you know, internationally renowned. So spending a couple of days with him was wonderful. So I learned a few different techniques, which I can share in the academy, and how you get those kind of shots. So where was I going? Where's it gone? There we go. Well, I lost train of thought now. Forgot what I was talking about. Well, it doesn't matter. So let's have a look in terms of, oh yes, editing. Yes, so editing is a very important part of photography. Now, some people say to me, okay, so JPEG and RAW, that's a common question that comes up. Now, and for any of you watching, if you've been a photographer for a while, you'll probably know the difference, and you'll probably shoot RAW, but not everybody does. So let me explain the difference. So JPEG and RAW are, when you look at the back of your camera, when you set it up and you first get it, you have to decide what file format you want the images to be recorded in. And normally you pick between one or the two. Sometimes you can pick different sizes of JPEG, different sizes of RAW, and sometimes you can get the camera to record both. But let's, for the simplistic way of looking at it, JPEG versus RAW. Now I shoot in RAW because a RAW image is basically, as you'd expect by the name of it, it's RAW. So all of the data in this picture frame here, if it's a picture of me, is saved. Typically quite a large file. All the pixels, all the exposure data, everything's saved. Now, what that means is nothing's done to it, no edits, nothing. And so you will need to, a RAW image will actually look a little bit raw. It can look a bit flat because nothing's done to it. So if you're shooting in RAW, you will need to edit. But even if it's just a little bit of sharpening, a little bit of contrast, maybe warming it up a little bit, and obviously doing the crop, however you want to do your crop. So you have to do a little bit. Now, a JPEG image is different in two ways. The first point is in the back of your camera, you've got lots of different settings. One of them will be picture style. Another one might be color balance, and there's various other settings. And whatever you've got your camera set to, those settings, if you're shooting RAW, don't make any difference to the image. But if you're shooting JPEG, they do. So the camera saves them and goes, so the color balance is set to this and the picture style set to that. So it does a little edit. And so the image out of a JPEG, when you look at it on your computer, will often look a little bit better than a raw image because it's had a little bit of tweaking done in the camera. It's done literally as it saves the image. It will look the same on the back of the camera. This is something people get really confused with. The back of the camera is a JPEG display based on the settings in the camera. So if you're shooting RAW, what you're seeing might be very marginally different. It's not massively different, but it is marginally different. So if you start changing settings and you can't see any difference, that's why. But the other important thing about JPEG is, so let me show you an image here. If this was a JPEG, if it's a RAW image, which this one is, all of the data is kept, and I'll come and show you an example of why that's a good thing in a minute. But if it was a JPEG, all of the images, all the pixels in and around this black, around the dog's head, and the green in the background, and the tree and everything, because they're similar colors, the JPEG engine bins them. So it kind of, it will look at this scene here and go, look, there's very similar kind of tones up there, so let's get rid of half those pixels. There's a lot of dark over there, some blacks and stuff, let's get rid of half those pixels. That's how it makes the typical file out of my camera as a raw basic image is 20 megs, say, roughly, whereas a JPEG might be 3 or 4 megs. So that used to be in itself quite an advantage because memory used to be really expensive, but it's not anymore. I mean, it's not cheap anyway, but it's a lot less expensive than it used to be. So this whole idea about getting more images on your card is a bit of a non-benefit. Now, if you're a beginner, you just got your first camera and everything else, don't stress. You don't need to shoot in RAW, and you can edit JPEGs. But if you're not doing any editing, and people in the academy sometimes join and they're not quite ready for that yet, then JPEG's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it. But where the issue comes is in the editing process, when you're changing exposure and contrast and all those things in Lightroom, for example, or Snapseed or anything. If it's a raw image, it is an example. You could probably, if there's your slider in the middle, And and if it's a raw image, you could probably move it all that way, and it'll still work and have a nice effect on the image. If it's a JPEG image, you can probably get this far or this far before it starts looking pixelated and not right. So that's the issue. So if you're shooting JPEG, you will be limited in terms of how you can finish off your image. So let me show you what this image looked like, because it was a raw image and I edited it. So I was able to take an image. If I go back there, look at that a minute. Black doesn't have any detail in the dog. It's a classic black blob that a lot of people tell me they get when they take photographs of their dog, black labs or whatever it might be. But through editing, not complex. Did this in Lightroom. I can show you how to do this, which we do in the academy. In fact, there's a module about this particular image in the academy, I think. It's a 5-10 minute edit, and that level of detail in that dog's face and the fur and his eyes and his whiskers on his nose and all that. If it was a JPEG, because that image was relatively dark, wouldn't be as good. So something to think about. Another thing that I help people in the academy do, I mean, it's not all about dogs, but here's a dog, is we talk about how we get what I call the black background shot. So this kind of shot. And people often say to me, oh, so where's your studio? It's like, I don't have a studio. And so there's a way of taking an image like that in the field and then finishing off in editing in a very simple way that can create a really kind of standout image. So, we work on that. The other thing we were doing the other night, we had a whole webinar, a whole training thing on, just trying to find the picture now, where is it? Here it is, of black and white photography. Because that's very popular with everybody, actually. It's becoming a bit in vogue again now, actually, black and white photography. So one of the things that I went through with people in the academy, and these videos are already up there, and we'll be doing more of it, is, what are the important things about black and white photography? What kind of images work, what kind of images don't, and because not all images work in black and white. But typically you want an image that's got plenty of tonal range, lights and darks, and lots of texture. Because the minute you take color away, that's what you're left with. The other thing about black and white images, they're quite timeless. They're quite good at conveying strong emotions about things. So if you've got shots like where you're trying to demonstrate the connection between an owner and his dog, or a family member, or whatever it might be, this sort of stuff, it can work well. So black and white photography is quite a fascinating subject. Not as straightforward as people think. So how are we doing for time? There we go. There's 45 minutes. So if anybody's got any questions, doesn't look like we haven't got any more. So I will start wrapping up, because I don't want to take up too much of your lovely evening, because are we now 20 to 7. So hopefully you've either had or looking forward to a nice din-dins, a glass of wine or something maybe. I've got a photo shoot tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to. And fingers crossed with the weather. We'll see. So yeah, if you've got any more questions, drop them in, and I'm more than happy to answer them. But I'll start wrapping up. So, as I said, www.beyondthelensacademy.com is the website. We're open for, and I'll just make sure my little notes here, because when I did the webinar earlier on, I made sure I answered some of the questions. So we're open. So the first question is, when do we close? Midnight tonight. When do we open next? We're hoping to get one in before Christmas, but we can't guarantee it. So it could be next year. And so the next obvious question is, so why do we only open for 2 or 3 days at a time, a few times a year? And the reason for it is we're obsessive about working with our members and supporting them. They invest money, whether it's beginner, amateur, pro, monthly or annually, whatever. So we make sure they get as much value for money from it as possible. And that requires us to be focused internally with our members and not externally on marketing. So we do it now and again, as I've done this last few days, been banging on about the academy and getting and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of why we do it. So the discount levels are there. They're between 25 and 41% at the moment. And so those levels of discount, and as well as the actual membership pricing, will be different next time round. So if you want to save some money and you're thinking about joining, do it now, because they will be more expensive next time. I answered the question, can we upgrade? It's a very, very common question. I answered the question, do we cover editing? And yes, we do. The other one here, is there a tie-in? The answer is no. So if you're a monthly member and you want to cancel, you can. There's no kind of like 6-month or 12-month contractual thing. It's an ongoing payment thing, which so you subscribe, so you pay every month automatically. But if you want to stop it, you stop it. So you're in complete control of that. When you next open, we covered that. And then the last one here, is the content of your webinar recorded live? So, and the reason the person asked this question, so it's probably worth clarifying, is that I think they're currently at university. So what they were thinking is that I come on live and I'll do a webinar about something, and then if they miss it, they've missed it. And that's not quite the way it works. The way it works is I'll come on live and I'll record a subject on black and white photography. Members can join if they're available in the chat box, and they do, and they ask questions, and I put them on the screen just like we've done today. And that's that whole webinar is recorded. Once it's finished, I upload that into the membership, whether it's beginner, amateur, or pro level, because you've all got your individual areas, or a thing called the hub, which is the second bit you get, whichever level you join at, which is generic, which covers all sorts of stuff. Loads of content in there. So the videos are in there, and then people can then comment on them individually, and you know, oh, I saw that video, that's quite good, Carl. You know, with black and white photography, should I do the conversion of black and white before the edit or after the edit? Can't remember what you said, and stuff like that. And that starts to become a little bit of a thing. And to the chap asked earlier on about the interaction with members, that's another way. It's like a little group within the academy where we do that. So I'm conscious it's getting late. So if there's any more questions, let me just check. It doesn't look like there are. So I will wrap up. So as I said, in summary, if you want to join, I'd love to have you on the Academy. You will absolutely love it. Have a look at the reviews, look at what other people are saying. It's a great place to be, and you'll fall in love with your camera. If you're thinking about setting up a business, do it. And don't be put off by people saying to you, well, there's no money in photography. I've had clients spend £5,000 or £6,000 on photography. You know, but that's because I know how to run a business, the photography business, so we share all that. But if you just want to get involved, fall in love with your camera and just have a place to share images and get feedback, it's a fantastic place to be and learn more. So midnight tonight, that closes. If it's not right for you at the moment, as I think one of the lady mentioned in the comments just now, that's fine. But I'd recommend you like and follow the page, which you can do via the website. The Facebook page that we got, because we're constantly doing things on there, and I try and do a webinar like this once a week if I can. And also get yourself on the mailing list. Woody, be quiet. He's getting impatient. Get yourself on the mailing list, because that way I can let you know if we've got workshops and when the doors are open next and so on. So Woody wants to go. So that's kind of it, really. I will leave you in peace. If I don't see you in the Academy, but see you on the webinars, then great, or vice versa. But I'd love to have you in the Academy. Make the most of it. Yeah, have a great evening and have a great week next week. See you later. Bye.